I'm just walking down the street, and the street is lonely. There's no one to save me, save me, save me, save me.
Jonathan Lethem wrote this amazing novel, The Fortress of Solitude, a decade ago, and Daniel Aukin, who directed our show, read it and called me and said,
somehow at some point I got this notion that I couldn't really let go of, that maybe there was a theatrical version of that.
And I read it, and I said, I fell in love with the novel. I was so completely overwhelmed by the novel.
I told him to read the book, and initially I think he said there was no way. It made no sense.
That actually I was like, we can't touch this, it's amazing, I don't want to do anything with it. And then 24 hours later I called Daniel back.
As I recall, he got back in touch with me like a day later and said,
actually, we have to make this musical. I want nothing in my life except to make this musical.
Oh, baby, you're the one I remember, but you're playing me for a fool.
The story of The Fortress of Solitude, the musical, is the story of two boys who meet in Brooklyn in the 70s. They grow up on the same block.
Hey, if you could fly, you could tag as high as you want.
I saw a dude flying once.
What? When?
When I first moved here, he went across the roofs.
Yeah, I saw that too.
If I could fly like Superman through the sky, I'd live forever in my fortress of solitude. A fortress built from Mingus Rood. I'd ride my...
Mingus Rood is the coolest kid on the block. He's moved to the block with his dad, Barrett Rood Jr., who's a former soul singer.
Red is the color. Every time I wake up and I'm holding you, every time that you make me feel the way you do.
Barrett Rood Jr. is a soul singer from the 70s, came up from North Carolina, hooked up with the Distinctions, and they became an almost group. Had a couple of hits, but just as they were really starting to cement themselves and blew up, they fractured and fell apart.
Stay here, just spend the night together.
He comes from the soul era, really like the late 60s through the 70s, and that's really what his strength is. As he gets into the mid to late 70s, he starts singing on Clinton-like funk records and sort of becomes an animal, like displaced out of time, out of his own context. He's trying to raise his son now that the wife has left, and has to take in his father, who's being paroled from prison.
This is the story of Reverend Barrett Rood. Paroled on good behavior.
You know, some of us in the show call it like our groove opera. Michael has done a really amazing job of not only weaving and reweaving a lot of our own internal themes, and changing them and reweaving them and juxtaposing them against one another. There's also so many influences.
There are people on the block singing songs. Time passes and you see punk happen. Hip hop and rap.
Yo, here's a little story that you ought to know about a
You will hear snippets of Talking Heads.
You may say to yourself, I can be whoever I say I am.
Right through to Ballads of Mingus Rood, where we get into G-Funk.
Rich man, poor man, bad man, good. Who will save the neighborhood? Big man, little man, who you gonna be? Will you ever sing?
Play that music. Play that music. Play that music. Now this is a story of a boy, you know, who's been in and out.
One of the other prevailing themes of the show is making a space for yourself.
Makes a space, but the song makes a space.
The show follows graffiti artists in New York, Mingus Rood, who's the other boy growing up on Dean Street, being one of them. And one of his lines is to say it loud and clear, Dose was here, and Dose is his tag. And so this record, in a lot of ways, feels like our version of a tag, saying that this musical happened off Broadway, and here's what it was.
To save a dream that's bound to fail.